Welcome back. This is the Round the Crown. We're talking all things Sacramento Kings and beyond. If you're a Kings fan, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you would like to join the Royal family, please hit that subscribe button. Well, Calvin, the news of the day. Tyreke Evans has officially been reinstated into the NBA. If you've been a Kings fan for 5+ years, I'm sure you know the name Tyreke Evans. He won Rookie of the Year in Sacramento. I think he was like one of 3 players, including, LeBron James and Magic Johnson, to average 25 and 5 in his rookie season.
Oscar Robertson.
And Big O, Oscar Robertson. He is officially reinstated after being out for 3 years due to, I think it was like a PED or drug violation.
Yes, he violated the NBA's drug policy.
So he's officially able to start negotiating with teams today, and he can officially sign with a team on Friday. The last time we saw him was in 2017 with the Memphis Grizzlies. He was averaging 19, 5, and 5, which are pretty good numbers and close to those rookie year numbers that I had mentioned.
That is pretty good enough.
Calvin, what do you think's going on with Tyreke Evans? Do you think we'll see him in the NBA this season? Should the Kings take a chance on him, or you think he's going to end up with a contender?
I would definitely expect him to end up with a contender over anybody. I would be – the fact that we're past the trade deadline now, for a guy that hasn't played in 3 years, I think it would be – it would surprise me to see someone sign him this season, especially a contender, because – a contender is going to be relying on him for not 30 minutes a game, but they're going to be relying on him big time to play a specific role. And for a guy that's missed that much time, it would just surprise me. So I would expect much more to see if somebody is going to take a chance on Tyreke Evans to sign him in the off season. That way he can come in, get training camp with the team, preseason, all that stuff together, and then get a fresh start next season. As far as Sacramento goes, I love Tyreke Evans. He was a great King while he was here, but please, Monty, do not sign him. They do not need him right now. He would clog this lineup. They're a very deep team. I don't know where they would find any minutes for him anyway.
Yep.
I don't think that it would be a good thing for the Kings.
If he hadn't brought in guys like Justin Holiday and a bunch of these other wings, I might be open to bringing in a guy like Tyreke Evans. I'm really interested whether he still has that purple Lambo that I know he got busted on what was it, 80 or something, 99, driving like 150 miles an hour, which is really ridiculous. But I expect him to sign with a team maybe like the Lakers, who
I was going to say, keep your eyes on the Lakers.
Yeah, they need to make
they
some
want
change.
Goran Dragic for sure.
Well, they need a lot of guys.
Yeah.
They've needed to make some changes. They're struggling. They were not able to make a move at the deadline. So a team like that, I feel like, just kind of waits for guys like this to be available to add for a late season push. I also would include the Nets in that category. Maybe a team like the 76ers that have given up a bunch of pieces to bring in a guy like James Harden. There will definitely be places for Tyreke Evans to land this season if he so chooses to.
Right.
Nets packed the paint. Drummond sagged off Sabonis and let him shoot jumpers. The fact that we were missing threes hurt our spacing as well. Yeah, I mean, just straight up, the Kings didn't make shots tonight. Sabonis said in his post-game press conference he needs to be more aggressive. He said it's difficult when you come to a new team, a new city. You don't want to step on anybody's toes. You want to let guys get their thing. He said he's been passing a lot more lately to just try and become part of this team. But he said he learned his lesson tonight, and he's going to be more aggressive. When guys sag off of him, he's going to take the shot. He's going to play his game. He said he didn't play his game tonight.
Yeah, he needs to play like, even if De'Aaron Fox is the number one option on this team, he needs to play like a number one option every night for the Kings. They need him to be an all-star. Like that's his role on this team. So,
yep. So Calvin, I want to take a look here at the Kings starters. We've seen a pretty consistent lineup since the trade. Here we have De'Aaron Fox starting, Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, Harrison Barnes, and Sabonis. We've seen so many different starting lineups this season, right? With guys coming in and out of the lineup due to COVID, due to injuries, due to just not good offensive flow and coaching staff just saying, hey, I'm going to start this guy due to matchups, stuff like that.
And due to a coaching change. Also.
Yeah. I want to hear your thoughts on this starting five. As we mentioned, De'Aaron Fox was the only guy in double figures tonight out of the starting lineup. Are you happy with this five? Are you going to keep rocking with it? Would you prefer something else? Where you sit here on this starting lineup?
I'm very happy with this starting lineup. As I think I said after the first game, they used this starting lineup right after they traded for Sabonis. This is what the Kings wanted to look like at the beginning of this season. We talked a lot before the season started about small ball, 3-guard lineup, all of that stuff. This starting five is not as small as what we were talking about with that lineup before, but they're exactly what this team needs to be, I think, in order to have success. As we mentioned before, they can now play a 4-out, 1-inside offense.
Yep.
You've got reliable shooters. Mo Harkless has been very inconsistent from 3 this year, but he has been much, much better as of late. Defensively, though, that's where they need to make their biggest strides, right, or take the next big step. And this team, this starting five defensively, is much, much better equipped than what they were before with all these rotating pieces. You've got very versatile players that can switch a lot. You know, we talked early on in the season about how the Kings should not switch as many screens as they do because they put themselves in bad situations. Well, now you've got your forwards are Mo Harkless and Harrison Barnes. Very interchangeable, lots of length defensively, can guard multiple positions, perfect for switching. De'Aaron Fox has looked much, much more engaged, giving much more effort on the defensive end, which is great.
He was playing good defense tonight.
He was. And then Justin Holiday is another one of those guys that's a very scrappy player defensively, has a lot of length as well, and can fight through screens. So I think that this should be the Kings starting five moving forward. You can argue, maybe Davion gets a nod or DiVincenzo instead of Justin Holiday, something like that. But I think this is the right group for them to keep with moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if this Kings team is going to continue to do what they say, and that's play fast, I like this lineup a lot. One of my big issues with Richaun Holmes was Richaun was not a great a great rebounder, and that really affected this team. Sabonis is an amazing rebounder. I think he's probably, one of the best rebounders in the league, maybe top 5 rebounder in the league. And then you do have Harrison Barnes at that 4 position, which is a little more difficult on the defensive end of the floor. But as far as offense, you have Sabonis grabbing the rebound, the defensive rebound, and you have these other 4 guys running up the court, great passing. I think this team is capable of shooting very well. And I love the switchability. I love the versatility of this starting lineup. And honestly, for me, it's also, you look at the bench, I'm happy to have guys like DiVincenzo and Mitchell coming off the bench. I really am. I think that gives this team another advantage. And as I mentioned earlier, it allows them to rest guys in the starting lineup and not come back into the game down 15 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this team has an identity now as to where they did not have an identity before. They were constantly trying to look like 2 different teams depending on who had the ball, De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Halliburton.
Or Buddy Hield.
Yeah, I guess 3 different teams. But now, you've got a complete roster, like a lineup that actually can play together.
Yep.
The ability, I'll keep saying it, but the ability to play inside out, you're going to get much more open looks from 3 that way. Sabonis is a guy that you can actually run offense through in the post, whereas Richaun Holmes, even though I love him, is not that type of guy. They're much more dynamic group right now in terms of they can do a lot of different things. They have great cutters on this team too. So these pieces complement each other well. It's just a question of, how much can they really click together, and will this coaching staff or the next coaching staff that they bring in next season be able to maximize what the abilities are of this group of players?
Exactly. Want to give a shout out to Fred here. Thank you, Fred, for the super chat. Thank you for all your support. We really, really appreciate it. As many of you know, we just recently passed 1,000 subscribers, and we were able to finally monetize this channel. So we will be bringing you even more content than normal. If you'd like to support us, you can give us a super chat. You can give us a super sticker. We would much appreciate it. Buy us a beer, or you can head on over to royalrebounds.com. Check out our store. We have a couple awesome hats, some shirts. We greatly appreciate all your guys' support, and we will continue to bring you fresh Kings content. All right, Calvin, I want to take a little dive here into maybe a sore subject for Kings fans, but Tyrese Halliburton.
Too soon.
Dude has been playing really, really well in Indiana. I know it's only been 2 games, and they unfortunately lost both of those games. But, the 11th against the Cavaliers, 23 points, 6 assists. Then he follows that up on the 13th with 22 points and 16 assists. 2 huge games for Tyrese Halliburton. I'm still a Tyrese fan. I'm going to root for the guy no matter what team he's on. Of course, if the Pacers are playing the Kings, I am definitely going to be rooting for the Kings. But I think there are certain trades. I feel like any good trade or any good situation in life is a give or take, right? Like you find a way for it to be positive for both teams. And that's kind of how I'm viewing this trade. It's giving Tyrese an opportunity to go to a new city, basically have the keys to the franchise, be able to grow and learn. I think from the front office standpoint, they're going to continue to lose games through the rest of the season so that they will be able to pair him with another high draft pick. You look at Sacramento, they were able to bring in a running mate for Fox that complements him, doesn't play the same position, does some of the things that the Kings have really needed. And then they were also able to bring in a couple, wings to play as well. So, just looking back on this trade, I know a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, maybe our thoughts will be a little bit different. But I just got to give a shout out to Tyrese. He's playing excellent ball in Indiana. And, I think it's a good trade for both teams.
Yes, I agree completely with you there. It was a good trade for both teams. Just like this trade, I think, kind of unleashed or unlocked De'Aaron Fox a little bit. It did the same thing for Tyrese. I still go back to how I felt when the Kings drafted Tyrese, in that I didn't like the fit of him and De'Aaron Fox together.
That's the first thing you said.
It's the very first thing I said. There probably was some alternate reality or universe where the two of them would have worked together, maybe if they had different teammates, or the roster was built out a little different way. But I think that this trade was good for both of those players and for both teams. I mean, Indiana is set up now for the future. They've got their backcourt set for, they probably are hoping the next 10 years with Duarte and Tyrese Halliburton. Really good start for them. And then the Kings, I think are in a better position now too. So, but you're right. We're always going to be, or at least the two of us are always going to be Tyrese fans. I wish him all the best and all the success wherever he's playing.
Yeah. You want to root for everybody. You don't want to, be a hater or, any of that stuff. But, just wish everybody the most success as possible. And, hey, like I said, I think this will be a good trade for many teams. I like Sabonis a lot, man. I really do. I know he didn't have his best game tonight, but I love the demeanor. I love the openness. Like, even the post-game press conferences where he's just like, I made a mistake. I need to do better. I learned from tonight. I'm ready to move on. You see him on the court. He's always positive. He always seems to have a good vibe. I know it's a very small sample size so far, but, I love him smiling. And as you mentioned, it unlocked guys like De'Aaron Fox, who's like, okay, this franchise is finally doing something to help me out. They're making my job easier. I've been a manager in multiple jobs, and I always feel like the manager's job is to make everybody's job easier, right? Like that's your number one goal. And maybe Monty, I praise him for a bunch of the moves and the things he's done. But over the last 2 seasons, I don't know if he's really made De'Aaron Fox's job easier, right? He's drafted guys at the same position. He's been very patient. Some might say too patient in adding talent for De'Aaron Fox. He was finally aggressive. He finally made a move. And I think that really proved to De'Aaron Fox that this franchise is building around me. Yep. I'm the centerpiece, and he's definitely showing it on the court.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Sass says Gentry threw in the entire bench every time we made a comeback. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
It seemed like Fox and Sabonis were out almost the whole third quarter.
They were out for a long time. Some of that is fouls. Some of it is just trying to get the rotation in. I mean, I feel like the Kings' rotations have been off all season long, and some of that, sure, I think you can put on the coaching staff. Other parts of that you can just put to the players not playing well or not being the right type of fit around each other, all that stuff. So, I mean, your starters can't play all 48 minutes, not all 5 of them, like, sure, maybe every game you can probably go back and say, maybe I shouldn't have subbed these guys in at this time or something like that. But I'm not so sure how much, because of the way the team was shooting, first of all, I don't know how much the timing of the substitutions really affected the Kings losing in this game.
Yeah, Dennis, we read the article, Life Goes On by Tyrese Halliburton. I guess it's, a guy being a little emotional, letting you know his thoughts and how exactly he feels. We're going to continue to root for him. But I think everybody was blindsided by the deal. So, it just kind of goes to show from there on. Alfie says it's not all Sabonis' fault. It wasn't Sabonis' fault. The Kings.
I don't know anybody that's saying it's all Sabonis' fault.
The Kings just didn't shoot well.
Yeah.
But Sabonis is supposed to be a leader on this team. And as a leader, even though it's not all your fault, it is your fault, right? Like, you take responsibility. And I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying it's his fault. You
take all the blame when the team loses, and you give all the credit when the team wins.
I like how in the post game,
traditional leader. Right?
I like how in the post game press conference he doesn't throw anybody under the bus.
Yeah,
he takes responsibility and he says, "I need to be better."
Yeah, I mean, look,
what else could you ask for?
Yeah, this group of players has only played 3 games together, and so it's just going to take time. I mean, they shot horribly today. Like, if they had made 3 or 4 more threes, it's a totally different game. So you can't win them all. Like we said earlier, we were happy with the effort that the team provided. The defense is looking better, and I do think that every time this team takes the court or the practice court, it's going to get a little bit better for them.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about Dante DiVincenzo, just because I've been so thrilled watching this guy play this season. I really didn't watch him too much early on. I saw him, but I didn't really start paying attention to him until the Kings tried to do that sign and trade for Bogdanovic for DiVincenzo. And then I started watching him a little bit closer, and I'm like, okay, I like this guy. He can do everything on the basketball court. He's got a lot of energy, in this and that. But since he's come to Sacramento, I've seen a little bit more. He's only 25 years old. His birthday was just a few weeks ago. He's played, 177 games in the NBA so far. He's averaging just under 9 points per game. His effective field goal percentage is 52%. He's shooting 34 from three-point range for his career. Calvin, I just want to hear your thoughts on what exactly Dante brings to this team, what we can expect for him. I know we talked about starting lineups and how you and I both like pairing him with Davion Mitchell and bringing him off the bench, but the guy is so young, and he already has a ring. I feel like a lot of guys, you look at Trevor Ariza, he won a ring with the Lakers, and he's like, I'm going to go get paid. I'm going to go do my thing. He's a free agent at the end of the season. The Kings have talked about how they've had their eyes on this guy for a long time, and he's a piece. So that would make me think that the Kings plan on re-signing this guy in the offseason. I am totally on board for that. So I just want to hear your thoughts on him, what you like, what you dislike, what you think we can expect from him through the rest of the season and potentially beyond that.
Well, I don't think there's much to dislike about him. I've been a huge fan of Dante DiVincenzo ever since his college days. My Michigan Wolverines got lit up by him in the national championship game 4 or 5 years ago. He is just a really solid all-around player. You know, we talk a lot about Harrison Barnes and that he can do so many things well on the basketball court. Maybe he's not all-star level at any one particular area, but he's above average on just about all of them. DiVincenzo is the same way. Yep. All the guys that go play for Jay Wright at Villanova are NBA ready the minute they step onto an NBA floor. It doesn't matter if they've played 4 years at Villanova or 1 year at Villanova. He is great at preparing his guys for the next level. All NBA coaches talk about that when they're dealing with players that come out of that program. He went to a great spot to land right out of college with the Milwaukee Bucks, where he played for a winning culture. He's a really solid defender. Average shooter. But again, I think that now that he's in a new role, he's going to get more opportunity on this team. You know, with the Bucks, sure, they relied on him. They played him, decent minutes, but he was way, way down on the pecking order on that team. He's not at the top of the list in Sacramento, but he's much higher than he was in Milwaukee. So he's going to get more opportunity now. I think that his game is going to develop a little bit more with this team. I don't know what his total ceiling is. I mean, I feel like he could grow into a starter's role where he's, kind of like he's a two-way player, like a 3-and-D guy, not an all-star maybe, but a really solid player that you can count on night in and night out. And I'm excited to see what this guy's progression will be like on this team. But he brings a lot to the table. He does a lot of things really well. He's a very instinctual player. You can see that defensively. Reads passing lanes really, really well. Good help defender. Good on-ball defender. He's got a lot of skills. So it's just a matter of how he can kind of take that next step now that he's on a team that's going to maybe ask a little bit more of him than the championship team he was on with the Bucks.
Yeah, and this is only his 18th game of the season after suffering, a devastating ankle injury and having surgery on that. I think he's definitely on the up and up. I like everything that he's doing on the court. I love his enthusiasm, energy. We talk about effort. I think he is a great two-way player, and he is still very young. So I expect him to keep getting better and better and better. Is there a guy, NBA current or past that this guy really reminds you of?
That's a good question. I would have to think a little bit more about that before I gave a really concrete answer. But he reminds me of a solid two-way player. I mean, there's a lot of those guys out there. Really good mid-range game. Yeah, I'll think more about that, and I'll get back to you.
Okay. And I know I didn't ask you about your king of the game because the Kings actually lost tonight. As you can see, Peja is very disappointed. He is not looking at the camera tonight. But my king of the game was DiVincenzo. It really was. I know he didn't play that well offensively. Okay. De'Aaron Fox had 26 points in this game. Yeah. But I'm just so
8
surprised.
8 rebounds and 5 steals. So.
Yeah. The rebounding is incredible. I didn't know this guy was this good of a rebounder, and it just seemed like he was either in the right position every time or like he's timing his jump perfect. Like I saw him getting rebounds over LaMarcus Aldridge, like a bunch of these bigger guys, and then he just seemed to be so active in this game. He would have had another steal if it wasn't for that bad call of like them saying it was out of bounds. But I love everything I've seen from DiVincenzo, and I'm actually going to disagree with you on this, Calvin. I think he could be an all-star.
Oh, wow. I would be surprised, honestly, to see him get to all-star level play. Not that he's, not a good basketball player. I think he's a very good basketball player. But I would be surprised to see him make an all-star team. I would.
Yeah. Trevor says, do you think the Kings bench is too deep? Maybe there isn't enough playing time for everyone to be happy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think you can make that statement for this bench the entire season before they even traded for all of these guys. You could see that night in and night out when every night was a different lineup, a different set of 3 guys first coming off the bench. The Kings have kind of been all over the map in terms of really settling down as to this is our first starting five, this is our second starting five. Now they have even more talent on the bench than they had before the trade deadline. So, yeah, I do think there's a lot of truth to that. I also think that that's Monte McNair is well aware of that, and he's talking about this offseason. They're set up for more improvements to come. They have their draft picks. So you might see another trade or two here in the offseason that kind of clears up the logjam they have on the bench.
What do you think he was going to target in the offseason? What does he need?
Good question. They really filled a lot of needs in this past trade deadline. I think that they probably want to have the incumbent or the successor to what Harrison Barnes' role on this team is. And you're going to look for a player that's eventually better than what Harrison Barnes is right now. But, Harrison is one of the older players on this team. Who knows how much longer he's going to be in Sacramento. He plays a very big role for this team in that he does a lot of things. He plays, multiple positions, guards multiple positions, reliable scorer, outside shooter, all that stuff, good rebounder. So I think they need to maybe look to the draft or look to make a trade for a young wing player that's going to be that next guy in Sacramento to play alongside Fox and Sabonis. But other than that, I love the bench that they've got right now. I think it's probably one of the better benches in the NBA once these guys get more playing time together. So I'd be looking at young wing players that are going to be the eventual successors to the guys like Mo Harkless and Harrison Barnes, first and foremost.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like most of the guys they brought in here, they're like, we need defense, right? Like defense.
Well, sure. It goes without saying they always need to be looking at defense.
All these guys they brought in are just great defenders, and I really love it. I think the only thing this team is still really missing is a good rim protector. We saw the block tonight by Rashawn Holmes, which I thought was a clean block. Like, I was so surprised that even challenging that play that it was called a goaltend. I think that's a bunch of BS, honestly. And I felt like I was watching Kings-Lakers in the Western Conference Finals of like 20 years ago. But I think that that's the one thing that this team is really still missing is a great rim protector.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They really have committed to Sabonis, though, who I think he can hold his own inside due to his size, but you never really think of him as a rim protector. So on that note, what they decide to do long-term with Rashawn Holmes is, I think that it was the biggest question to me last offseason is whether or not they would re-sign him. It's the biggest question to me this offseason is what do they do with him? Are they going to try to move him? Are they going to continue to use him as their backup center? They've got a real decision to make there, I think.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Cal. Let's flash back to the start of the season. If the Kings had this lineup, they started the season with this entire team now, and with Coach Gentry, where do you think they would be right now?
That's a very hard question to answer. I think they would be ahead of where like the Spurs and the Pelicans and the Blazers are now. The question is how much ahead of them would they be? Could they be right around where the Clippers are for the 8th seed? It's possible. I think there's still you need to see this team play together more before you really make that type of determination. I am confident that they would have a better record than they do currently. The question is how much better would it really be?
Yeah, I see a lot of people here in the chat just talking about how the team just needs more time.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that that's their biggest need right now too. So we have one more game against the Bulls, and then they have a week off. I think Davion's going to be the only one involved in All-Star festivities now.
It looks like that.
Tyrese is gone. So they are going to have an entire week off to hopefully get on the same page, get some practice time, get some momentum and some consistency between these players. And I expect them to have an exciting next month or so of basketball. But speaking of that, Calvin, it's break time again. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at the Kings' next week of basketball with Kings Crusade.